And the third question, which was directed to the panel as a whole, and I'll try and paraphrase this and clarity from the questioner if necessary. And that is, I think, naming at one of the core subtext challenges of this entire conversation. And that is the apparent, and here I'm just interpreting the question, potential for different metrics of sustainability between those that may have coming from the environmental advocacy front or social advocacy front, and how they interpret and measure sustainability versus how industry producers and those part of the entire global beef production system may measure and describe and define sustainability in their industry. And let me just add a twist of further clarity to that, perhaps, which I believe goes right back to Jason Clay's from WWF's initial conversation about his suggestion that essentially the core conversation, the core debate is around possibly A, identifying the critical key 6 to 8 issues that have priority, cross-cutting priority among stakeholders from environmental, social, and private sector interests, to our interpretation of those, both values that we bring forth in our interpretation of those core issues, as well as the science that we use that must be mutually agreed upon in order to come to mutually defensible and arguable metrics around what should or should not happen in driving towards sustainability. So that difference, that apparent difference, was what was named by the audience member. I wonder if someone would like to comment on their perspective. Yes, sir, from the U.S.
Yeah, I would like to comment on that. I don't think that increased cattle and grazing and environmental protection are antagonistic to each other. I think that good grazing stewardship enhances grassland productivity with the practices and the methods that I have seen developed during my lifetime. I have seen that we can increase productivity of our range and we can enhance the grass populations, making them more robust and more healthy. So I think it's more a matter of taking the things that we have learned as far as the amount of rest grass populations get and the fact that grass to be healthy needs to be grazed, and the most advantageous way to do that for the grass population, and you can coincide that with the needs of the cattle, and you can end up with actually more sustainable, healthier range.
Thank you. Additional thoughts from the steering committee on the question of how well the metrics of environmental sustainability match with those involved in the industry? Yes?
Well, I'm particularly worried about the metrics on life cycle assessments, because we see today, for instance, with Brazilian ethanol, how those metrics are used and manipulated to restrain trade. Mm-hmm. So my only fear on that is that those kind of metrics are used to restrain trade and to create a new form of protectionism. Mm-hmm. We see that happening already with ethanol, and I'm sure that can also happen with beef.
Yes. So those metrics can create challenge and controversy as well.
Yeah, and the science for it is yet so fragile that we are not able yet. We don't even know what's the warming potential of methane. Mm-hmm. So how can we calculate it in a so complex country like Brazil with different production systems, with different kinds of land use? Mm-hmm. It's a very complex problem, and well, I don't think that should be used against trade.
Thank you, Fernando. Ricardo, additional Brazilian perspective?
Yeah, I'd like to make some comments about what we saw here today. And of course, there are many, through the speeches here, we can say that there are many different ways of producing beef cattle around the world. We have many different perspectives on what sustainable really is on different ways of production. But the big question is who's going to pay the bill? I think when you look at a chain, you have to imagine that you have all the elements of the chain there. But in the end, there are two end positions, the farmers and the consumers. Mm-hmm. The other people on the chain, they have the ability to charge one or another, depends on how they manage their policies. Of course, beef producers all around the world right now, they are committed to profit. They are doing that way or on another way, looking on what is their profits by the end of the day. Mm-hmm. And we cannot blame them wherever they are to do that way, okay? Mm-hmm. I believe that this conference here will start a new way of looking things because, of course, farmers in one side are the weak part of the chain. The consumers can be the weak part of the chain if you look, depending on the country that you are looking to. Mm-hmm. I had a slide that I cut off because of the time that says that all developed countries, they are spending less than 10% on food of the total income of a family. If you look to BRIC, Brazil, Russia, India, and China, we are spending like 25%. But if you look to Africa, they are spending more than 40%. So whatever you do, whatever the decision of being more sustainable, hurting the beef price or hurting the cattle farmers, will have a big impact on those underdeveloped or developing countries than in also developed countries. So this is something that we should address also. Sustainability and responsibility, by the end of the day, should be the price that people are paying for their food also, okay?
Mm-hmm. Terrific. Thank you, Ricardo. Other questions, clarifications to the panel before we move to some final closure? Okay. We good? One more question back here? Terrific. Thank you. Sorry, the mic might be dead. Or speak up. Exactly. One moment, we'll get a good mic back there.
Thank you. It works better. Niels Billman from the French Meat and Livestock Association. It's not such a question, but more a comment. I understand that most of you come here from beef-producing countries, from beef breeds. But if we look at the global herd, and the conference is on sustainable beef production, in the global herd, a number of animals are bred not for beef production primarily, but also for dairy production, and in most of the developing countries also for draft. So if we talk about the allocation of any environmental impact, we have to make sure that these sectors get their fair share of those environmental impact. The reduction of draft animals in the developing countries is also a reason for a reduction of the global herd, as we can see in China right now. Yes. Another thing is that I would like to, coming from the EU, I would like to stress the importance of the regulatory system. And in the EU, we have a heavy regulation burden, including on environmental aspects. For a long time, we've had plans for the management of manure and byproducts of the animals. And finally, a comment on improving productivity. This is important. Increasing the carcass weight is certainly important to improve productivity, but it has to be done also in conjunction with the market demand. In the beef breeds that we have in Europe, we have cattle carcasses weight of up to close to 500 kilos. But the trend now is for a reduction of that weight more than for an increase, because the market doesn't want so heavy animals. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you for those comments. And I think that's a good transition, Matt, to come towards, because I didn't hear actually a specific question within that, but more a broad commentary, just to be clear. Yes? Are there any additional questions first? Okay, thank you. And then we'll move to some last thematic points. One or two more hands.
Hi, it's more of just a comment. My name is Sia Johnson. I'm with the American Veterinary Medical Association. And I felt like one of the trends is definitely towards talking about the intensification of the system as a whole. And I guess my comment would be, as we look to our other livestock industries, I think we'll have to be careful in how we manage those intensified systems, especially with the housing when we get to like the feedlot.
Yes.
Area, especially looking at our housing for poultry and what's happened for hogs, and how the consumers are responding, especially in the United States and the UK. So in the developing countries, it's more on we need a better price on our food, but in the developed countries, they're wanting to see that we're managing those animals appropriately.
Yes. Thank you. Important distinction. Was there any final comment or question?